Hello everybody and welcome back to Champions Chat, where today we are talking about the Fossil expansion plus the first round of the Black Star promos. Fossil came out in October 1999, and we're going to have to speed through it a little bit because while Jungle had 3 cards I wanted to talk about, Fossil plus Black Star promos has a whopping 13 cards I want to talk about. So let's just get right into it. No intros, no nothing. Here we go. First card I want to talk about is Ditto. Ditto from the Fossil format. Pokemon Power Transform. If Ditto is your active Pokemon, treat it as if it were the same card as the defending Pokemon, including type, hit points, weakness, and so on. Except Ditto can't evolve, always has this Pokemon power, and you may treat any energy attached to Ditto as any energy of any type. Stops working when you're affected by a special condition. So the big thing with Ditto is it can use double colorless energy to provide 2 of any energy it wants. So it's at worst exactly the same as your opponent's Pokemon, but a lot of times better because they need multiple energy to do something. You can use a double colorless energy to just accelerate. Top card, one of the top cards used in my Worlds deck. Great card for a long time. Next, let's talk about Fossil Magmar. 70 hit points. It has that big basic Pokemon number. 1 fire smokescreen. 10. If they try to attack you, they flip a coin. If tails, the attack does nothing. 2 fire. 20 smog. Flip a coin. If heads, the defending Pokemon is now poisoned. This is the first thing that really contests Scyther. Oftentimes, you'll play first with a Magmar against a Scyther and just smokescreen. That puts the Scyther in a very bad spot. If they try to Swords Dance, they are in immediate danger of getting that Scyther knocked out by a second fire energy plus the heads on smog, because it would be 20 for smokescreen and then 40 plus 10 more for poison for a total of 50 on the smog. So they can potentially get their Scyther knocked out in 2 hits, which is a big deal. So Magmar doesn't make Scyther too much worse, but it gives it a little bit of opposition. Magmar's also decently good against Lickitung in the sense that it can poison it, and poison against high hit point things really builds up over time. The problem is that if they're tongue wrapping you, you have a very, very low chance of poisoning them. 25% to be precise. If they just lead with a tongue wrap, in order to poison them, they have to flip tails on tongue wrap and you have to flip heads on poison. So it's very difficult to actually lock this poison in against Lickitung. Plus, with the 90 hit points, they can actually take a full 2 smogs and then scoop up. So even if you get the first heads initially, it's still a 3-hit KO on Lickitung. So solid, decent card, good against Scyther, good against Lickitung, but nothing majorly impactful in Magmar. Let's stick with the fire theme and talk about Moltres. Moltres is interesting. It gives you another way to win the game that we haven't seen before, and that's the mill strategy. If you played old trading card games, milling means discarding cards off the top of your opponent's deck until they have no cards left. And that's what Wildfire does. 1 fire, you may discard any number of fire energy cards attached to Moltres when you use this attack. If you do, discard that many cards from the top of your opponent's deck. So the Moltres deck is going to be pretty much using Lickitung and Moltres to just extend the game as long as possible. They have to draw a card every turn, and you can Wildfire as much as possible. And the hope is that you just stay alive long enough to deck your opponent out. Moderately effective, but runs into issues with a lot of the trickier decks that we're going to get into with the Psychic Pokemon. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Next, because I said I would do it in my first video, we're going to touch on Rain Dance. And Rain Dance gains a few cards here. Let's talk about Articuno and Lapras. Alright. Rain Dance gets his first attacker that isn't Blastoise. 70 hit points, 2 retreat, 3 water, freeze dry, 30, flip a coin if heads, the defending Pokemon is now paralyzed. Blizzard, 50 for 4 water. Flip a coin if heads, 10 of all your opponent's bench Pokemon. Tails, 10 of all your bench Pokemon. The problem with this card, as you can see, is the total of the 2 attacks is 30 and 50. It's going to be 80 damage. Lickitung has 90 hit points. So Lickitung is still going to be doing quite a bit against this deck. Usually when Blastoise does its whole Oak Pokemon Breeder Blastoise, play all their stuff, they follow up with the last. So when you last, you get rid of your own trainers too. Your plus powers are gone, so you are potentially looking at that 3-hit KO on Lickitung still, depending on what order you do, if they have Scoop Up. And those Blizzard Tails can really build up on your bench stuff. The heads, I mean, it's not game breaking. They usually have like a 70 hit point thing on their bench, so if you flip a heads, now they got 60 hit points left and still out of range for Blizzard. It's a great card. It makes Rain Dance a little bit playable, but still in general, Rain Dance not really a top deck. Lapras, this is your answer to Mr. Mime. So we all know Mr. Mime from Jungle, 40 hit points. Anything over 20 damage turns into 0. So Articuno cannot damage Mr. Mime. Blastoise cannot damage Mr. Mime. So you gotta rely on Lapras. Water Gun, 10 plus 10 more for each water, caps at 30. And 2 water, confuse rate 10, flip a coin if heads are confused. Very, very underwhelming, but it's your only answer to Mr. Mime, so you have to run it. And that's why Rain Dance still isn't great, because there's still too many silver bullets. And by silver bullets, I mean just single cards or text that can just wreck the deck and make you lose automatically. So Rain Dance does get better. It adds the big basic Pokemon, but still too many things exist that just kind of shut it down. Let's talk about the big thing that shuts it down. Muck. Muck was introduced in this set. Pokemon Power, Toxic Gas. Ignore all Pokepowers other than Toxic Gases. So this is the big problem for Rain Dance. A lot of people play Muck. Muck is not that great of a card in this format, but it's popular for some reason. A lot of people just, I don't know if it's their favorite Pokemon or if they overestimate how many powers are in the format, but people do play Muck, and unfortunately that's really bad for Rain Dance. If they don't have that ability to use Blastoise as Rain Dance, they'll just never ever beat Super Energy removal. It's impossible, just attaching one a turn. So there's Muck. Alright, now let's get into the good stuff. One of the things that happened in the Fossil format is it offers all these tricky Psychic Pokemon. Let's call them that, tricky Psychic Pokemon. Back in Jungle, there was really only one deck that could be a top tier deck, and that was the Chansey Lickitung Scyther deck. But Fossil offers all these Psychic Pokemon that offer a lot of different ways you can deal with Lickitung other than sheer force. You know, we realized Lickitung is a wall. You can't just attack it, because they're just going to scoop up, super, tongue wrap, disaster. So there's ways to get around it now with Fossil. And let's start talking about them. The first one I talk about is Ghastly. Fossil Ghastly just has incredible stats. It's like a mix of Scyther and Lickitung, the top 2 Pokemon. It's got that free retreat cost, that fighting resistance, the no weakness, and it's got a tongue wrap, basically, for a Psychic Energy. Flip a coin, 10, heads paralyzed. Great stats, great hit points, 50 is solid. The big thing is energy conversion, and this is one of those tricks that gives Lickitung a lot of problems. With Lickitung capping out at 10 damage, people have a lot of time to use all these goofy, weird attacks that do new stuff, and energy conversion is one of them. Put up to 2 energy cards from your discard pile into your hand. Ghastly does 10 damage to itself. This is great in Wigglytuff decks, and this really does give Wigglytuff decks a way to deal with Lickitung. With Lickitung versus Wiggly, the idea is they're doing 60 damage, you're doing 10 damage. Okay, great. Wigglytuff wrecks Lickitung, right? Wrong, because, again, they just walk into that super energy removal, scoop up, promote Scyther, retreat, tongue wrap again, and there's not much you can do about it. They eventually run out of double colorless energy, and then they just got a Wigglytuff sitting up there doing nothing. Or, while they're doing this, they're just building a Chansey for Double Edge, and Double Edge knocks out Wigglytuff in one hit. Energy conversion lets you get the double colorless energy back. So let's say they do that to your Wigglytuff, they super it, they remove it, and they start tongue wrapping. Now you can promote Ghastly and energy conversion back to double colorless energy in your hand. And you are going to outlast them, because you can do this multiple times. You energy conversion, put 10 on Ghastly, they tongue wrap, you're at 20. You can energy conversion again. You don't mind giving up the prize with Ghastly because they got to draw 6 prizes with Lickitung, which is incredibly difficult. And you essentially outlast their energy removals by getting energy back. Getting back 2 double colorless energy after they just remove a couple is devastating because now you're going to be able to build another Wigglytuff and you're going to be able to just, outpace that Lickitung with your 60 damage against your 10. They're going to run out of removals at some point, and when they do, Wigglytuff will beat the Lickitung. That's the idea. Now, the downside about this is while you're doing this, they can still build their Chanseys, which is a big, big problem for Wigglytuff. Lickitung is amazing, but it is not the best Wigglytuff counter. Chansey is an incredible Wigglytuff counter. I don't know if I've ever lost a game where I've double-edged a Wigglytuff. It's just so devastating when they get 3 energy on it, and then it just gets knocked out in one hit, and then they can't follow up with another knockout, so you can just retreat and do it again if they tried to get another Wigglytuff going. It's just too much. They can't really do much about it. So that's Ghastly. The next little trickster we're going to talk about is Slowpoke. Fossil Slowpoke, exact same idea. If they are stalling with Lickitung, doing 10 damage, you have another attack that you can take advantage of Lickitung's 10 damage per turn. Scavenge. Discard 1 Psychic Energy card attached to Slowpoke in order to use this attack. Put a trainer card from your discard pile into your hand. It's an item finder. It's multiple extra item finders every game. If they're tongue wrapping, you can scavenge an item finder, scavenge an energy removal, scavenge a super energy removal, and just get all this stuff back. You're removing, item finder removal, then it just comes back. And they can't really do anything about it because they're doing 10 damage. Slowpoke, another big tricky card that really takes advantage of Lickitung's 10 damage. Mewtwo. Our best movie promo card at the time. Energy Absorption. Choose up to 2 energy cards from your discard pile and attach them to Mewtwo. Again, another means versus Lickitung to get your double colorlesses back. Energy Absorb, get back 2 double colorless, they tongue wrap. Energy Absorb, get back 2 more, they tongue wrap. At some point you switch and you use Mr. Fuji. Where's that X? There we go. Mr. Fuji, choose a Pokemon on your bench, shuffle it and any cards attached to it into your deck. So the idea here with Mewtwo is you're going to just put a whole bunch of energy on it from your discard pile late game. They removed you, they removed you, they removed you. You're getting all that energy back and then shuffling it back in. Not only are you adding like 5 or 6 cards to your deck, which is huge in a format where you're trying to stall the other guy out, but it's energy cards. It's double colorless energy that you can just reuse on your Chanseys, your Wigglytuffs, your Dittos, your things that take double colorless energy. Very great card with energy absorption. It's also not a bad attacker. It was really, really like the primary attacker back when we were playing in the day when we didn't use Lickitung. Because, again, we didn't use Lickitung, so Mewtwo was a very, very top tier just by itself, trying to comp search turn 1 and get that turn 2 Cyburn. Not so much anymore because Lickitung, in a physical battle, destroys Mewtwo, but in a battle of wits, the whole absorb Fuji thing, Mewtwo is very, very good against Lickitung from that side, not from a brawler standpoint. Alright, a counter to Mewtwo is Mew. This is another Black Star promo. So, if you are also playing Psychic in your deck and they are going to try that Mewtwo strategy on you, you have a retreat, 1 Psychic, knock out Mewtwo in 1 hit if they try to get a double colorless energy. Psywave, actually, they would have to do it 2 times because it's energy cards, not energy, correct? Does 10 damage times the number of energy cards attached to the defending Pokemon. So if they try to just absorb a bunch of energy, you just retreat, Mew, 1 Psychic energy, knockout. The first time they do it, when they got 3 energy on them, you can do it with the plus power. So if you are trying to counter the Mewtwo Fuji strategy, you can use Mew to do that. The last Psychic Trickster is not actually Psychic, it's water, but it uses Psychic energy. Psyduck. This is a sleeper top card in the set. Headache. Your opponent can't play trainer cards during his or her next turn. This is a huge, huge boost to those all-in decks that we were talking about. let's say the Arcanine Electro deck, for example. When you open turn 1 with Psyduck and just play all that stuff and bench all those Voltorbs and Headache, they are just an immediate danger of being checkmated if they have one Pokemon in play, because they can't Cobble Search for another Pokemon, they can't remove your Psyduck, they can't Gust out the Growlithe or anything, they can't Oak to get more basics. They're oftentimes going to have a hand of like 2 energy and 4 trainers. And just, you know, if they draw another energy or trainer, they just lose the game immediately. This is a crazy good card for just turn 2ing people. It's also good in the future sets when you're trying to set up a stage 2 Pokemon like a Dark Vileplume. You know, you just Headache until you get that Dark Vileplume out, and then they just go the entire game of never playing a trainer card. And most decks play about 30 trainer cards, so they're just playing with half a deck essentially. So Psyduck's Headache is insanely good. Tons of decks get based around it. It's also great for decking people later on in the game. A lot of times it'll come down to like your 3 cards against their 2 cards, but they've got a Lass or a Gambler or a Maintenance ready to get you and pull 1 card ahead, and then you just Headache them for the last 2 turns, and they can't play any of those cards, and they just deck out, and there's nothing they can do about it. That's one of Jason's favorite tactics, is those late game Headaches, decking people out, and I've seen a lot of people just rip their hair out due to it. It's really annoying, so you gotta be on your toes when you're playing him, because he always has a Psyduck in every deck he plays. Great card. Last card we're going to talk about, we were going to talk about the trainers. I pulled out 2 trainers. We already talked about Fuji, so I'm going to talk about Gambler. If you've ever played the Lickitung Mirror, you get like 20, 25, 30 card hands because it's just you guys tongue wrapping each other and scooping up and tongue wrapping back and forth all game, trying to see who decks out first. This is the card that saves the mirror. Shuffle your hand into your deck and draw cards. Flip a coin. If heads, it's 8 cards. If tails, it's 1 card. So yeah, you just shuffle that 20-something card hand back in your deck, and they deck out first. And it becomes, if somebody plays the Gambler and another person doesn't, the person that has the Gambler is going to win. Better than Lass, in my opinion, because you can also offensively use it with a bad hand early on. You got a hand with multiple item finders, let's say 2 or 3. You actually don't even care if it's tails. I mean, you prefer heads, obviously, but just getting rid of that hand that you need all that stuff late game to potentially draw either a new full 8-card hand, or just shuffle it back in and draw 1, and eventually top deck the Yoke. It's going to be game saving a lot of times. Alright, so that's all the Pokemon I wanted to talk about. That's all the trainers I wanted to talk about. How do the top lists get affected? Trainers are going to remain the same. The same top 5 trainers from last week, which I believe was Scoop Up number 5, Energy Removal number 4, Super Energy Removal number 3, Professor Oak number 2, and Item Finder number 1. That is going to remain unchanged. Like I said, Gambler and Fuji, great trainers, but not good enough to crack the top 5. Pokemon. We're going to have a slight adjustment. 1 and 2 are going to stay the same. It's still going to be Lickitung at 1 and Scyther at 2. But at number 3, we're going to move Wigglytuff up, because Wigglytuff now has a lot more ways to deal with Lickitung. It gained all this psychic stuff that pulls all these little tricks on Lickitung, and it can hang in there without just getting supered and getting stuck up there. It can now do things against Super Energy Removal and Scoop Up and that string of tongue wraps. It has options like the energy absorption, like the energy conversion, or the Slowpoke, you know. So Wigglytuff is going to move up to number 3. It's going to give Lickitung a little bit of a run for its money at this point. Number 4 is going to be Chansey, because Chansey is just the counter to Wigglytuff. Knocks it out in 1 hit. When they're playing Wigglytuff, they're playing evolutions. And when you're playing evolutions, you're limited on how much energy removal you can play. So Chansey is so good against Wigglytuff because not only does it knock it out in 1 hit, but they don't have as much energy removal as a standard Lickitung deck to deal with Chansey. A lot of the times you're going to just attach to it, and they're going to run out of supers and removals very fast, and they won't be able to stop that double edge. So Chansey at number 4. Number 5 can be so many things, but the one I settled on is going to be Ditto. Just because Ditto handles a lot of these Pokemon that are new in the format, especially the Psychic Pokemon. That being able to use Ghastly's energy conversion for 1 energy, or Slowpoke's attack for 1 energy. Mewtwo's energy absorption. It can knock out Mewtwo with 1 energy plus a double Carlos out of nowhere. Ditto is just great against all these psychic Pokemon that came in the format. It's also fine against Lickitung, you know. It becomes a 90 hit point thing that you can scoop up, Tongue Wrap. It can Swords Dance against Scyther turn 1. If they don't have another basic, they are in danger of losing the game immediately. Ditto is just definitely number 5. I'm sold on it. I had a couple things I was thinking about putting there. I was thinking about putting Mewtwo. I was thinking about putting Ghastly. I was thinking about Psyduck. But we're going to settle on Ditto at number 5. And that's our fossil video. I know I talked really fast. I tried to speed through it, but I talked about 3 cards for a half hour last week. And I was scared on what was going to happen with 13 cards. So we're going to end the video here so I don't bore you guys too much. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, thumbs up, thumbs down, anything to show that you care. Have a good one. Peace.